Think you've already played the best single-player games ever made? Think again. Some games don't just entertain you. They completely change what you expect from gaming. And trust me, a few of these are on a level that most games never even come close to. This list isn't about the biggest games or the highest review scores. It's about 20 unforgettable single-player experiences that do something so incredibly well, they stick with you long after the credits roll. Some will surprise you, some might even become your next obsession. Let's jump straight into it. If you told me a brand new RPG would completely steal the spotlight in 2025, I probably would have laughed. Then I played Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and wow. This game is on a completely different level. The combat is what hooked me first. It starts like a traditional turn-based RPG, but then you're constantly dodging, parrying, and timing your attacks, so every fight feels intense, instead of just picking commands from a menu. But the real surprise is the world itself. Everything feels beautiful, mysterious, and just a little unsettling, like you're walking through a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any second. The soundtrack deserves a standing ovation because there were moments where I actually stopped moving just to listen. And the story? It isn't afraid to hit you with emotional moments that genuinely stay with you. Sure, it's not the easiest game to master, and some bosses can absolutely humble you, but that's part of what makes every victory feel earned. It's one of those rare RPGs that reminds you why this genre still has so much magic left. And somehow, the next game on this list manages to deliver an even more immersive experience in a completely different way. Most RPGs make you feel like a legendary hero within the first hour. Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2 does the exact opposite, and that's why it's so incredible. You start out feeling like a regular person who has to earn every single victory. The first time I got into a real sword fight, I realized button mashing wasn't going to save me. Every swing, every block, and every mistake actually mattered. Then there are the little details that completely pulled me into the world. NPCs remember your actions, guards react to how you're dressed, and even something as simple as walking into town covered in mud changes how people treat you. That's the kind of immersion you almost never see anymore. The world feels alive whether you're chasing a quest or just wandering through the countryside. And yeah, the realistic mechanics can be frustrating at first. You're going to lose fights, make bad decisions, and probably get humbled more than once. But once everything clicks, it's almost impossible to stop playing. It doesn't try to be a typical RPG. It creates a world that feels real enough to disappear into, and that's exactly what puts it on another level. But the next game proves you don't need realism to completely blow people's minds.
Well, you're not as good as Captain Bernard, but that wasn't bad.
Be sure to remember, if someone gives you a riposte, you can still fend it off with a perfect block. And it's best to follow up right away with your own riposte.
The moment I picked up Black Myth Wukong, I knew this wasn't just another action game trying to copy the Souls formula. The very first boss fight makes one thing crystal clear. You have to stay focused because every enemy feels like a real test of skill. What surprised me most wasn't just the combat, even though it's incredibly satisfying. It was the creativity behind every single encounter. Just when I thought I'd seen everything the game had to offer, it introduced another massive creature, another insane ability, or another jaw-dropping location that made me stop and look around. And using the Monkey King's transformations never gets old. One minute you're carefully reading an enemy's moves, and the next you're completely turning the fight around with powers that make you feel unstoppable. Visually, this game is absolutely stunning. Some areas honestly look like concept art brought to life. Sure, a few difficulty spikes can be brutal, and there are moments where the camera isn't exactly your best friend, but those are tiny complaints compared to everything else it gets right. This is the kind of game that reminds you why single-player adventures are still capable of delivering unforgettable moments. And somehow, The next entry takes a completely different approach to horror and still manages to leave an even bigger impression. Some horror games try to scare you with jump scares. Silent Hill 2 gets inside your head, and that's what makes it unforgettable. From the moment you step into that fog-covered town, something just feels wrong. The streets are almost empty, the music keeps you on edge, and every hallway makes you question whether you should keep moving or turn around. Then the monsters start showing up, and they don't just exist to attack you. They feel like they're part of the story itself, which makes every encounter even more disturbing. The remake does an incredible job bringing this world to life with stunning visuals, smoother combat, and some of the best environmental detail I've seen in a horror game. There were moments where I caught myself checking every corner, not because I wanted more loot, but because I was genuinely afraid of what might be waiting. It's definitely slower than most modern action games, and if you're expecting non-stop explosions, this isn't that kind of experience. But if you let yourself get pulled into its atmosphere, it becomes one of those games you can't stop thinking about long after the credits roll. And trust me, the next game proves you don't need monsters or horror to create one of the most unforgettable journeys in gaming.
Wait! Please don't go. Stay with me. Don't leave me alone. I didn't mean what I said. Please, James. Tell me I'll be okay.
I'll be honest, the first time someone described Death Stranding to me as a game about delivering packages, I thought there was no way it could live up to the hype. Then I actually played it, and I couldn't have been more wrong. This is one of those rare games that completely changes once you understand what it's trying to do. Every journey across the landscape feels like its own adventure. A steep mountain, a rushing river, or even a handful of loose rocks can turn a simple delivery into a tense survival challenge. Then you start building roads, bridges, and zip lines, and suddenly you're not just helping yourself, you're helping thousands of other players without ever meeting them. That feeling of discovering a ladder or bridge left behind by someone else is strangely satisfying and makes the world feel connected in a way I've never experienced before. Add in the breathtaking scenery, an unforgettable soundtrack that kicks in at the perfect moments, and one of the most unique stories in gaming, and you've got something that's impossible to compare to anything else. It's definitely a slow burn, and not everyone will click with its pace. But if you give it a chance, it rewards your patience with an experience you'll never forget. And coming up next is a game that proves you don't need a massive open world to deliver one of the most satisfying combat systems ever made. I went into Lies of P expecting a solid Souls-like. What I didn't expect was one of the best action RPGs I've played in years. The first thing that grabbed me was the combat. It's fast, brutal, and every perfect guard feels incredibly satisfying. There were boss fights that took me dozens of attempts, but instead of making me quit, they made me want to jump right back in because every defeat taught me something new. Then there's the weapon system, and this is where the game really stands out. Being able to mix different blades and handles lets you create weapons that match your own playstyle, which kept combat feeling fresh from start to finish. The Dark Bell Epoch setting is another huge win. It's beautiful, eerie, and packed with secrets that reward anyone willing to explore. Even the familiar Pinocchio-inspired story takes unexpected turns that kept me guessing. Sure, a couple of late-game difficulty spikes can feel downright ruthless, but when you finally beat those bosses, the satisfaction is unmatched. Lies of P doesn't just prove it belongs alongside the biggest names in the genre, it proves it can stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And the next game takes a legendary franchise in a completely new direction, delivering one of the smoothest and most satisfying adventures in recent memory. I'll admit it, I wasn't expecting Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, to be this good. I thought it'd be a fun comeback for the series, but what I got was one of the most polished action platformers in years. The movement alone is incredible. Dashing, wall running, air juggling enemies, and chaining abilities together feels so smooth that after a few hours, you're pulling off moves that make you feel like a speedrunner. Then the game starts throwing in clever platforming puzzles and tough boss fights that actually make you stop and think instead of just spamming attacks. One feature I absolutely loved was being able to take a screenshot of a location and pin it to the map. It sounds simple, but it makes exploring so much more rewarding because you always remember where to come back once you've unlocked a new ability. The world is packed with secrets, hidden paths, and upgrades that constantly tempt you to explore just one more area. Sure, if you're looking for a huge open-world RPG, this isn't it. But that's exactly why it works so well. Every level feels carefully designed, every ability has a purpose, and every upgrade makes exploration even more satisfying. It's proof that a classic franchise can evolve without losing what made it special. And trust me, the next game shifts gears completely, trading acrobatic precision for massive battles that make you feel like an unstoppable force. Warhammer 40,000. Boltgun feels like someone took the best shooters from the 90s, cranked everything up to 11, and somehow made it feel brand new again. This game doesn't waste your time. Within minutes, you're charging straight into chaos with a bolter that sounds so powerful, every shot feels like it could shake your speakers. The movement is ridiculously fast, the enemies come at you from every direction, and the non-stop action had me grinning the entire time. I love how it embraces that old-school style without feeling outdated. Hidden rooms, secret collectibles, massive arenas, and wave after wave of enemies make every level feel like controlled chaos. The pixel art visuals are packed with personality, but don't let the retro look fool you. This game is surprisingly modern where it counts, with smooth controls and combat that feels incredibly satisfying. Sure, if you're looking for a deep story, this isn't the game that's going to deliver it. Boltgun knows exactly what it wants to be, and it absolutely nails it. Sometimes all you need is a ridiculously oversized gun, hundreds of enemies, and pure adrenaline from start to finish. But the next game slows things down just enough to remind you that incredible storytelling can hit just as hard as non-stop action. A Plague Tale. Requiem is one of those games that completely caught me off guard. I expected a solid stealth adventure, but what I got was an emotional journey that stayed with me long after I finished it. The relationship between Amisha and Hugo feels so real that you genuinely care about every step they take. You're not just trying to survive, you're desperately trying to protect someone you love, and that changes everything. Then, there are the rats. Thousands of them flooding entire streets, swallowing everything in their path, turning even the smallest mistake into pure panic. Some moments had my heart racing as I searched for the next light source before the darkness closed in. Visually, this game is absolutely gorgeous. From quiet villages to war-torn cities, every location feels handcrafted, and the soundtrack makes the emotional scenes hit even harder. It's definitely slower than most action games, and the stealth won't be for everyone, but that's exactly what makes the intense moments so unforgettable. By the time the credits rolled, I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to process everything I'd experienced. That's the kind of impact only a truly special single-player game can leave behind. And somehow, the next game changes the mood completely with an adventure that's bursting with style, energy, and one of the coolest gameplay ideas in recent years. Hi-Fi Rush is the kind of game that reminds you why it's so much fun to try something different. The moment I realized every punch, combo, and dodge synced perfectly with the music, I couldn't stop smiling. Instead of mashing buttons, you're fighting to the beat, and once the rhythm clicks, every battle feels like you're starring in your own animated action movie. Even if your timing isn't perfect, the game eases you in, but the better your rhythm gets, the more stylish and satisfying every fight becomes. What really surprised me was how much personality it has. The characters are genuinely funny, the dialogue never feels forced, and the colorful art style gives the whole adventure a unique energy that's impossible to ignore. Then the boss fights come along, each one feeling like a massive concert mixed with an over-the-top action sequence. It's creative, it's refreshing, and it never takes itself too seriously. If I had one complaint, it's that some platforming sections aren't quite as exciting as the combat, but honestly, that's a tiny issue in an experience that's packed with charm from beginning to end. Hi-Fi Rush proves you don't need a gigantic open world or a 100-hour campaign to create something unforgettable. And trust me, the next game delivers the exact opposite, throwing you into an epic adventure that's bigger, darker, and filled with some of the most cinematic moments in modern gaming. Star Wars Jedi. Survivor is exactly what a sequel should be. It takes everything that worked in the first game and makes it bigger, smoother, and way more exciting. From the moment you ignite your lightsaber, the combat feels incredible. You can switch between different fighting stances on the fly, and each one completely changes how you approach a battle. Some enemies push you to play aggressively, while others force you to slow down and think through every move. But what really impressed me was the exploration. Every planet is packed with hidden paths, secret upgrades, optional bosses, and puzzles that constantly reward curiosity. There were so many moments where I wandered off the main path for a few minutes and ended up discovering an entire area I could have easily missed. And if you're a Star Wars fan, this game is full of those little details that make the universe feel alive without relying on non-stop fan service. Sure, the PC launch had its technical issues, and even now you might notice an occasional performance hiccup depending on your platform, but none of that took away from how much fun I had. By the end, it felt like I'd gone on a real galactic adventure instead of just finishing another action game, and the next entry proves that sometimes the best remakes don't just update a classic, they completely redefine it.
More powerful than I expected! That's one down! This'll be fun! On it! Reinforcements, now!
Resident Evil 4 is one of those rare games that somehow gets everything right. Whether you've played the original or you're jumping into the remake for the first time, it's easy to see why this game is considered one of the greatest ever made. Every chapter throws something new at you. One minute you're desperately surviving against a village full of infected enemies, and the next you're trapped in a castle packed with terrifying surprises. It never lets the experience become predictable. The combat is incredibly satisfying because every shot counts. Landing a perfect headshot, following it up with a kick, then barely escaping as more enemies rush toward you never gets old, and the pacing is absolutely phenomenal. Just when the action reaches its peak, the game slows things down long enough to build tension before throwing you right back into the chaos. The remake also modernizes everything without losing the charm that made the original so legendary. If I had one small complaint, a few side quests feel more like optional distractions than essential content. But honestly, that's a tiny issue in an experience that's polished from beginning to end. Resident Evil 4 doesn't just survive the test of time. It keeps setting the standard that other action horror games still chase today. And somehow, the next game proves that surviving space can be every bit as terrifying as surviving a village full of monsters.
¡Un forastero!
Dead Space is one of the few horror games that still makes me feel tense no matter how many times I play it. The second those doors close behind you on the USG Ishimura, you know you're not safe. Every hallway is dark, every strange noise makes you stop for a second, and the game constantly tricks you into expecting something around the next corner. What I love most is that it doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. The real fear comes from the atmosphere and the incredible sound design. Sometimes all you hear is metal creaking, distant screams, or something crawling through the vents, and your imagination does the rest. Then the necromorphs show up, and suddenly panic kicks in because you can't just aim for the head. You have to think fast, take off their limbs, and survive with whatever ammo you have left. That simple mechanic completely changes every fight. The remake takes everything that made the original legendary and makes it even better with stunning visuals, seamless exploration, and details that make the Ishimura feel like a real place falling apart. If there's one downside, it's that some backtracking can slow the pace a little, but the tension never disappears for long. Dead Space is proof that great horror isn't just about making you scream. It's about making you afraid to open the next door. And trust me, the next game couldn't be more different, trading survival horror for some of the fastest, most rewarding mech combat you'll ever experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just an open-world game. It feels like you're living inside one. I can't even count how many times I set out to finish a mission, only to spend the next hour hunting, playing poker, helping a random stranger, or getting pulled into some completely unexpected event on the side of the road. That's what makes this world so special. It never feels like it's waiting for you. It feels like it's living its own life. And then there's Arthur Morgan. I honestly think he's one of the greatest protagonists in gaming. Watching his journey unfold, seeing the gang slowly fall apart, and hearing those quiet campfire conversations hit me harder than most movies ever have. The attention to detail is just ridiculous. Horses react differently depending on how you treat them, NPCs remember your actions, weather changes the mood of every ride, and even something as simple as watching the sunrise in the mountains can become a moment you never forget. Sure, the controls can feel a little heavy, especially if you're used to faster action games, but after a few hours, it all starts to feel natural because the slower pace is part of the experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't just tell an incredible story. It creates a world that feels real enough to miss after the credits roll. And somehow, the next game takes a completely different approach to storytelling, proving that player choice can be just as powerful as any scripted moment.
I will push the wagon. Arthur, shoot someone! I'm trying. There's trouble now. Get behind the wagon as we push, Arthur. You can use it as cover. What are you doing, Arthur?
System Shock 2 might be over 2 decades old, but don't let its age fool you. This game still does things that modern sci-fi horror games struggle to match. From the moment you wake up alone on the Von Braun, there's this constant feeling that something has gone horribly wrong. Resources are limited, every hallway feels dangerous, and you never know what's waiting around the next corner. What really makes it special is the freedom. You decide how to build your character, whether you want to rely on hacking, powerful weapons, stealth, or psionic abilities. And those choices completely change how you survive. Then there's Shodan. Even after all these years, she's still one of the most unforgettable villains in gaming. Every time she speaks, you immediately know you're dealing with an intelligence that's always one step ahead. Sure, the visuals definitely show their age, and the interface can feel clunky by today's standards, but once you're immersed, none of that really matters. The atmosphere, the RPG mechanics, and the constant sense of isolation create an experience that still feels unique today. It's one of those classics that didn't just influence the genre, it helped define it. And trust me, the next game proves that even in modern gaming, a brilliant idea can completely reinvent how you think about exploration and discovery.
Sensory deprivation tanks aboard the TOS Runang await you. A year in meditation on the nature of matter will grant you power over it. The sensory deprivation tanks aboard the TOS Chulun are modulated for your train.
The Talos Principle is one of those games that completely surprised me. I expected a smart puzzle game, but I ended up questioning everything from artificial intelligence to what it actually means to be human. That's not something I expected when I pressed start. The puzzles are brilliant because they keep introducing new mechanics at just the right time. Every time I thought I'd seen all the game had to offer, it threw another idea at me that made me stop, think, and then smile the moment everything clicked. And that feeling never gets old. What really makes this game stand out, though, is the atmosphere. The environments are peaceful, almost haunting, and exploring ancient ruins while listening to philosophical conversations creates an experience that's strangely relaxing and deeply thought-provoking at the same time. It's the kind of game that respects your intelligence instead of constantly holding your hand. Sure, a few of the later puzzles can be seriously challenging, and you might find yourself staring at the same room longer than you'd like, but solving them is incredibly rewarding. The Talos Principle proves that you don't need non-stop action or giant boss fights to create an unforgettable single-player experience. Sometimes all you need is one brilliant idea executed almost perfectly, and the next game takes us in the complete opposite direction, delivering fast-paced combat with one of the most stylish protagonists in modern gaming. Nine Souls completely blindsided me. I went in expecting another solid Metroidvania, and instead I found one of the most satisfying action games I've played in years. The combat is absolutely phenomenal because it's built around precision. You can't just dodge everything and hope for the best. Learning enemy patterns, landing perfectly timed deflects, and turning a desperate fight into a flawless victory feels unbelievably rewarding. It's the kind of game where every boss beats you up at first, but when you finally win, you realize you've actually become a better player. That's an amazing feeling. What makes it even better is the world itself. The mix of futuristic technology and Eastern mythology gives the game a style that's unlike anything else out there. Every new area has its own identity, every boss looks incredible, and the hand-drawn art is gorgeous from beginning to end. I also wasn't expecting the story to pull me in as much as it did. Beneath all the intense action is a surprisingly emotional journey that kept me invested the entire time. Now, I'll admit, the difficulty isn't for everyone. Some bosses will absolutely test your patience, but the game is always fair. Every loss teaches you something, and every victory feels earned. Nine Souls is proof that even in a genre packed with great games, a truly special one can still rise above the rest. And trust me, the next game is all about mastering every punch, every dodge, and every move until you feel completely unstoppable. Sifu made me realize just how satisfying a combat system can be when it's built around pure skill. The first time I played it, I thought I could button mash my way through every fight. That idea lasted about 5 minutes. Every enemy forces you to pay attention, every dodge has to be perfectly timed, and every mistake has consequences. Then there's the aging system, which is one of the coolest mechanics I've seen in years. Every time you die, you come back older, stronger in some ways, but closer to the end of your journey. It creates this constant pressure that makes every encounter feel meaningful, and when everything finally clicks, it's incredible. You're weaving through attacks, throwing enemies into walls, stealing weapons, and clearing entire rooms without taking a hit. It honestly feels like you're starring in your own martial arts movie. The level design deserves a lot of credit too. Every stage is packed with shortcuts, hidden secrets, and opportunities to improve your run, making replaying levels just as fun as beating them the first time. Sure, it's brutally difficult at the beginning, and some players might bounce off because of that, But if you stick with it, Sifu delivers one of the most rewarding gameplay loops you'll ever experience. And for the final game on this list, we're ending with a sci-fi masterpiece that blends action, exploration, and atmosphere into an experience that's still unlike anything else.
You shall not fear death.
Be careful! He's got a weapon!
Saving the final spot for Returnal just feels right, because this game is unlike anything I've ever played. The first few runs can be absolutely brutal. You'll think you're making great progress, then one mistake sends you all the way back to the beginning. But instead of making me quit, it somehow made me want to jump right back in. Every run teaches you something new. You learn enemy patterns, discover stronger gear, and slowly become a better player without even realizing it. Then there are the boss fights, and wow, they're some of the most spectacular battles I've ever experienced. The combination of fast movement, bullet hell chaos, and an incredible soundtrack creates moments that feel almost impossible to describe until you've played them yourself. The atmosphere is just as impressive. Every area feels mysterious, lonely, and packed with secrets that constantly push you to keep exploring. And beneath all the action is a story that keeps raising questions instead of handing you easy answers, which had me thinking about it long after I finished the game. I'll admit it's not the easiest game to recommend because roguelikes aren't for everyone, and the difficulty can be relentless. But if it clicks with you, it's the kind of experience you won't forget. Returnal is the perfect reminder that the best single-player games don't just entertain us. They challenge us, surprise us, and stay with us for years. That's the list. And honestly, it shows just how incredible single-player gaming still is. Whether you love emotional stories, brutal combat, unforgettable worlds, or games that constantly surprise you, there's something here that's truly on another level. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more gaming content, and let me know in the comments which game you think deserves a spot on this list, or which one completely changed the way you look at gaming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I still can't believe how many people missed Prey, because this is easily one of the smartest single-player games ever made. The space station isn't just a backdrop. It's like one giant puzzle box where every room rewards curiosity. I loved that there was never just one way to solve a problem. Maybe you hack a security terminal, maybe you find a hidden maintenance tunnel, or maybe you use the glue cannon to build your own path somewhere the developers probably expected you to reach in a completely different way. That freedom is what makes Prey so special. And then, there are the mimics. Even after hours of playing, I found myself staring at random coffee mugs, chairs, and cardboard boxes, wondering if one of them was about to attack me. Very few games manage to create that kind of constant paranoia. The story also kept pulling me in with twists that made me question everything I thought I knew. Sure, the opening can feel a little slow, but once the game gives you more abilities and lets you experiment, it becomes almost impossible to put down. Prey doesn't tell you how to play. It simply gives you the tools and trusts your creativity, and that's exactly why it deserves the final spot on this list.
This is the glue cannon, a tool that has a lot of different uses. Alien abilities called Mimic.
And that's the list. 20 incredible single-player games that prove this style of gaming is still stronger than ever. Some made us laugh, some completely broke our hearts, and some reminded us why we fell in love with video games in the first place. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more awesome gaming content, and let me know down in the comments which single-player game you think is on another level. Maybe it's one of the games I mentioned, or maybe it's a masterpiece that deserves more attention. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.